All right, we're ready to start the debate. I want to introduce each one. Richard Scotty, stand up. Jim Marchant, Christopher Dare, and Socorro Keenan. 3 of these people came all the way up from Las Vegas.
I don't. I
do. You ready? You guys ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, with that in mind, we're ready to go. By the way, we are getting good questions live streaming.
All right, everybody, let's get this ball a-rolling. So let's take a moment and give each of you a minute to introduce yourself. Socorro, we'll start with you, please.
My name is Socorro Keenan, and I'm running for Secretary of State. I'm here because I have a passion for honesty and justice. We haven't seen that for a long time, and we are in a crisis of evil doings. I've listened to the lieutenant governors, and you're just scratching the surface. We really need to get back to the voter honesty, and we need to get back to courtesy to one with another. And the other thing is, I'm going to make sure that your vote will count with me, and that's it.
Mr. Dare?
Hello, my name is Christopher Dare. You met my lovely wife earlier. She's saying for you. This is my youngest son, Noah, and I have an older son named Adam. I'm running for Secretary of State, and here's why. Without question, I believe no one should ever doubt their vote. We have a lot of arguing going on what happened in 2020, and I've heard it all, and some of it, I don't know how to prove it. I don't know how to find it, but in the very end, it does not matter necessarily, because what is left with you right now matters, that you have that feeling, we have that feeling that something's wrong. We will fix that. Businesses, 80% of what Secretary of State does is with our businesses, and without question, they need an advocate there. I strongly believe we need conservatives in place. So for me personally, I've been a pastor for 30 years. I've led private education for 20 years. I've worked with our veterans almost my whole life. I've stood up without question and been a conservative and lived that out. I'm Christopher Dare. I'm running for Secretary of State for so many reasons, but I'm also the guy that can win. I'm from Las Vegas, and then I moved here. I'm a hybrid, and I know people across the whole state. Thank you.
Jim?
Thank you. My name is Jim Marchant, and I'm running for Secretary of State. And I'm probably one of the only ones that do believe we have a serious problem with our election system. And I've been working on it to fix it since November 4th of last year. I sued to get an audit, and it was only shut down by the judges. And why is that? They are hiding something, and I intend to get to the bottom of it. I've been working a solid year with the best people in the country to try to expose and uncover what happened in 2020. We can't go forward to 2022 until we know what they did in 2020, and we're going to find out, and I promise you that. So the Secretary of State does a lot of different jobs. It requires somebody that has life experience. I have my background's technology. That is very important for this seat because of the Dominion voting machines. I'm a computer programmer. Internet was all my businesses, so it's perfectly suited for me, and we need a businessman in this seat.
Time.
Thank you, Mr. Marchant. Mr. Scotty.
Great. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Richard Scotty, and I'm running for Nevada Secretary of State. As judge, I was a fierce defender of the Constitution. One of the things I did as my last, most critical decision is to stop Democrat Senators Nicole Cannizzaro and Melanie Scheibel from violating separation of powers. They were both district attorneys. At the same time, they were senators. And I said, no, you can't be a lawmaker at the same time you are a law enforcer. Strong constitutional values. I also call myself the 30-10-6 candidate. 30 years as a Nevada lawyer, 10 years as a Nevada law business owner, and 6 years as your district judge. A+ rated in ethics, and elected twice as governor of the State Bar of Nevada. Also, I'm most proud of being chairman of the Clark County Republican Party many years ago, and we supervise a team of 1,000 precinct captains to help protect our elections. Together, we will fix our election problems. Together, we will also promote better economic freedom. I would love for you to support me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Christopher, we'll start with you. I'm going to let Jason ask about the voter integrity issue, but I want to speak to you as a business owner. One of my frustrations with the Secretary of State's office is, just happened yesterday, $350 every year I have to send to the Secretary of State to renew my LLC. I have 7 of them. We do the math, right? But I never hear from the Secretary of State's office. What are they doing for the business owner in this great state other than collecting our $350 fee every single year?
Thank you for asking that. My name is Christopher Dare, and I strongly believe we need an advocate in that place. Now, Lieutenant Governor, be clear so you do know, they actually help bring business do that, but Secretary of State works with business every day. And you guys, like you said, every year are coming in, and there's a lot of things to fix. But one of the things we have to do is make sure you do hear from us, that you see us, and you have an advocate there. And some of the ways is just really, like one of the things that I have been doing is working with all of our Chamber of Commerce, bringing them together. And I've been talking to them and say, hey, what if we created an advocacy group from you guys? Tell me how we're doing. Tell me actually how it's going to work. And tell me, when you get on Silver Flume, did it work? Because I hear well, exactly. And so with that said, I think hearing from people, remember, communication is not just one way. It's not just telling you, it's hearing back from you. And if you're not doing that, you're actually not communicating or leading. So that question, I think, at advocacy on a state level is important. Now, there's a lot of roles to Secretary of State, but 80% of what we do is business, and all our LLCs, and actually the state counts on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marchant?
So when I was in the Assembly, I was able to learn how much waste there is in our state. And I believe that that cost should be 0. So that's what I would work towards, and using the bully pulpit to advocate for getting rid of the waste here in Nevada and eliminate fees like that. And that's something that the Secretary of State should be able to advocate for, and that's something that I will advocate for when I get there.
Mr. Scotty.
Thank you. Secretary of State has an immense role in helping businesses thrive and expand and employ right here in Nevada. One of the things you do, you're on the Board of Economic Development. You're on the Tahoe Regional Planning Commission. You are on the you have the responsibility of educating new businesses on what are government resources that are available to help you grow. You're responsible for teaching and educating all prospective businesses around the state on what's the proper form: LLC, LLP, corporation, C corporation, S corporation. You help them form the right business so they know how to succeed. You lower the license fees, you lower registration fees, you give them the information, you help them find the resources, they will succeed. That's the responsibility of Secretary of State. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Keenan?
My name is Socorro Keenan for Secretary of State. I've been a talent agent for 32 years. I was pulled out of my business. I worked for one of the governors, Governor Bob Miller. He didn't know I was Republican. Anyway, the most important thing is he did start the business. It was business tax. That's why you're paying what you're paying. It was $100 when it started, and I asked, why are we adding this added fee other than the Clark County and all the different counties and the city licenses and so forth? And no response. We don't even know where the money goes. And you know this as someone who's in securities. You know that a lot of money gets diverted from Nevada. I worked in private banking in Brussels and London. I do know what happened, and I do know that we have to keep the doors open for the Secretary of State. We're going to do everything we can. And my name is Socorro Keenan, and I'm running for Secretary of State, and I hope the lights go on.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yes, Mr. Scotty.
Just really briefly, you can find out where the money goes because you are on the Board of Examiners in the executive branch. So that's one of the things that the Secretary of State does. Also, The amount of money is immense, so we need to follow the money. We need to know where it goes. There's $25 million in our budget, but you receive $225 million in annual revenues from this position. It is a position that requires immense accountability and transparency over the funds. Thank you.
Mr. Dare?
Yes, thank you. You know, you're going to hear a lot from some of my, well, at least one of my competitors here about the bully pulpit a lot tonight. I'm here to tell you, if you do not work alongside people, you will not get things done. I've been the Nevada League of Cities president. I have seen us work together as a state. Don't get me wrong, right now politics is rough, man. But if we don't get leaders in there that are going to value people, work with people, I think we're all in trouble. And so to me, I'm concerned what we're handing to our kids, to our grandkids, and it needs to not just be a bully pulpit. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gunn?
So I like to say when you drive through the rearview mirror, you end up hitting a lot of trees. So without sort of looking into 2020 voter fraud concerns, conjecturing, et cetera, I want you all to be forward-looking. Obviously, our voting process is incredibly antiquated. Mr. Marchand, certainly going to start with you, but what technology-based solutions do you think could help move us forward? And then obviously acknowledge any issues that those technologies could be sort of exposed to.
Zero, none. Technology can be manipulated. We've got to get back to paper ballots. We've got to get back to precinct voting. Here in Nevada, our precincts are no more than 3,000 to 5,000. We can have, with supervision, of course, from the Secretary of State, the clerks, the registrars, count those votes in a matter of hours. That's what we've got to get back to. The Dominion machines or ES&S, those machines can be manipulated. The tabulators can be manipulated, and a lot of fraud happens through that. So the minute I get in there, the Dominion machines are gone, and we're going back to paper ballots, and we're going back to precinct-type voting. I'm going to abdicate for voter ID. We're going to clean up our voter rolls. We're going to get rid of Eric here in Nevada. Thank you.
Mr. Scotty?
Thank you. You know, the Republicans tried hard to come up with plans to improve our technology going forward. They came up with a BDR, Election Cyber Assistance Unit. It's a unit that they proposed to be part of the EAC, the Election Assistance Commission, under HAFA. Unfortunately, the Democrats did not give it a chance. They would not allow it to come up to vote. Now, I agree with Jim here that we need to go back to paper ballots because our technology has not kept up with our elections. Republicans have done so well in expanding the right to vote, right? African Americans, Chinese, Indians, voting, lowering the voting age, women, no literacy tests, no poll tax. We haven't kept up with technology. What we need to do is get back to paper ballots. If we keep the Dominion machine, which there's a serious problem with that, you have a problem with USB ports. The data comes out of the USB ports, and the data they record in the evening is never the same in the morning.
Thank you.
Too much inconsistency. We need to solve the technology problem. Thank you.
Socorro?
Okay, you hit it. Guess what? We're going to third world country voting. Our country has gone to Mexico, to El Salvador, to all those third world country where they know how to cheat. Okay, we got to stop that. What does the post office say? Do not mail in a check or do not mail any money, cash, in the mailbox. Why are we doing this mailing ballots? Our vote is much more important than that. Another thing is we need to close the doors on electronics. It's so manipulated. I've been to the CES show and I know how they hack everything. Why are we going there? We can go back to the basics. And just one voter, that we need to purge the votes that do not belong there, and we also need to come back to the basics. And if people can't see that, the Hispanics are turning in red, and we're going to the Hispanics. They really are red. Republicans, they didn't know it. We had too much, the Democrats, and that was, I'm going to bring it out, and don't get mad at me, but Senator Reid, he had everybody on the buses and voting whatever they wanted to vote.
Mr. DeHere?
Am I on now? I'm going to focus in on ballot harvesting portion. So right now, that is a law that I don't understand. It's something that got put in place, and I know why. Some of it has to do with we have shut-ins. I actually currently am a chaplain for a veterans home now. I work with shut-ins, and I understand some of that. However, that is not a reason to put a bad law in place and something that could cause corruption and needs to go away. But one of the technology things that do happen right now for military, they're overseas, they have a way to digitally vote, and this is something that they've been doing for years. I mean, it's not new. But why don't we take something that we know is working, has the circles around it, make sure we're protecting it, and bring it to them and get rid of something like ballot harvesting? We can use it in the right ways, in the right places, and make sure technology works for us. You know, with that said, I do that question. I know there's so many questions around our voting. I don't mind taking a back step if we need to for a moment, but technology is not the enemy. It's actually the people using it. So we need to make sure we can function correctly and walk forward together. Thank you.
We're going to stay on the same issue of voter fraud, et cetera, since it's near and dear to all of our hearts. So in, 2020, Governor Sisolak initiated the emergency measure of allowing mail-in votes. It's supposed to be, quote, emergency. Last year in the state legislature, not one Republican support vote. All Democrats voted to make it permanent. Socorro, I'll start with you. Would you, as Secretary of State, what would you do to try to repeal that, if at all possible?
We need each other first. We really need to get together. I don't know why we're so divided. I'm an American Hispanic, and I'm going to reach out to everybody and anybody I can. Why? Because people keep insisting on dividing and not connecting all these are our basics. Your voting is number one. We have leaders, we're stuck with bad leaders. The court system is corrupt. We've got so much layered negative stuff that's going on, and we can fix it. But we can only do it together. So I'm going to need your help. I have ideas. I'm a talent agent for 32 years. You think I can't find talented people, and you don't think I know actors? I know actors. Let's go get rid of them, especially in government. Thank you.
Mr. Scotty.
Well, I think this one's real simple. Yes, the legislature passed it, but we can get rid of it through a lawsuit. We can get rid of it by, first of all, the Secretary of State can issue an opinion that it's unconstitutional. Then the Secretary of State can work with the Attorney General to determine what's the proper petition for writ of mandate to order that law not be enforced because it violates the Constitution. It violates the Constitution because it doesn't guarantee election integrity. Our founding fathers made it clear that voting is a fundamental right. Fundamental right only exists if your vote counts, if your vote is not diluted. So I will go to the Attorney General. I'll file as many lawsuits as I can to stop it. At the same time, we got to resist what the federal government is doing, the federal government takeover of our elections, because that violates the Supremacy Clause.
Time.
That violates,
Thank you.
violates equal protection. Thank you.
Mr. Marchant?
So first of all, the judges are against us. We've got to clean our house first. We have all Democrat constitutional offices. They aren't going to work with us at all. We've got to work right now to get me elected in 22 so I can clean this up, and that's a challenge. I have engaged with Conservative Partnership Institute in Washington, a very conservative organization, Tea Party Patriots. I'm bringing them out here to poll watch, to poll vote count, to get people registered. That's what we've got to do for the 22 election to at least give us a chance to get in there. Once we get in there, we can change the system. And once again, I will be working with fixing the system so that your vote will actually count. Your vote hasn't counted for decades. You haven't elected anybody. The people that are in office have been selected. You haven't had a choice, and we're going to fix that by doing the things that I said, going back to precinct voting, voter ID, and other things.
Thank you.
Mr. Dare?
Well, as an elected officer, I take offense to that because I think I actually got elected for real. So we have a lot of people who got elected that are Republicans under what we do, and I think we celebrate that all the time. I would say this, though. AB 321 is a bill that is flawed. It's a bill that was pushed through to actually help endorse all this stuff. However, we are a nation of laws. It is not a perfect world. If we had a perfect world, I actually wouldn't agree with a lot of what's being said. We could go in there with our magic wand, we could change it, shift it, move it around, but that is not going to happen that way. We know that doesn't happen that way, because if it was, you would have done it already. You guys are frustrated. You're not just frustrated now. We've been frustrated for a while. And so with that said, you'll have to be able to go in and work with people. Part of it is right here. I don't know if you guys have read them or not. This is all the statutes under the 321. I've read all of them. With it, some of them do not do nearly enough, but it's a beginning. And I think we work with what's there and we keep pushing. Again, we have to go in understanding we're a nation of laws. And I don't believe every judge is against us. I don't believe that. Now, we do have some bad players, and we need to get them out. But just like anybody else, we need to make sure who's in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Real quick before we move on, Mr. Scotty, you come from the bench. Are these claims true that the judges are against us?
There are some judges that perhaps need to go back to constitutional law classes. But yeah, we had a couple of state court judges here that I think made wrong decisions. We had a federal court judge that made some wrong decisions. I think they were wrong on mail-in balloting. I think they were wrong on the signature verification machines. I think they were wrong, well, on many things. Jim is right that we have a problem with our liberal judges. It's the conservative judges that are here to protect us, and I was one of them, as indicated by my separation of powers decision against Canizaro and Scheibel. Thank you.
Sir Dare, rebuttal?
Thank you. One of the things that was said earlier by one of our people up here is talking about, working and going to make lawsuit. Well, we know this. With the Attorney General we have and the Democrats in place, you can throw as many lawsuits as you want, and that's not going to change a thing, because they're not going to look at it, they're not going to watch it, they're not going to whatever. This is, I'm telling you, why we have to make sure somebody gets in there that can stand for their conservative values, bring leadership to the table, and bring some common sense of what we're doing. It's not going to come in with a big stick. You're not going to go in there swinging at everybody. That doesn't change things. If it did, we would do it. We would love to do that. I'm in office now. I know it doesn't work that way. We have our nation of laws. I believe we can move that forward. I appreciate it. Thank you. I think I went way over my time, actually. I'm doing okay? Well, let's have a conversation, Paul. I'm just kidding.
Ms. Keenan.
Mr. Scotty, you're a judge. You know, you were involved with a housing problem, which had MERS, and it had robo-signing. That's just as bad as voter fraud. It's just as bad as rigging votes. And we know that. We have so much evidence. But the problem is the evidence doesn't do us any good. No one has the courage to go and do something. And I do have the courage, and I'm not afraid of anybody to tell them and show them that we've got to work things out. We have to purge the votes that didn't qualify. We just have to do that, and we have to take action. We need cameras. We need drones when people are voting. We need to use that kind of technology so that we can come to something that makes sense. So I encourage everyone to, bring out your ideas. I don't have all the ideas, but I certainly am open to anything that would make sense, and we're gonna get it done together. Please vote for Socorro Keenan.
Thank you.
Secretary of State.
Last rebuttal?
Yeah, since she mentioned my name and suggested there might be a courage issue, I have the courage. I have proven decisions standing up for conservatives that show I have courage. One of my decisions, the Review-Journal wanted to release the coroner report of an off-duty officer who was shot on 1 October. And they wouldn't give a reason why they wanted that coroner report and why they wanted to publish it. And I had the victims in my courtroom saying, "Judge, please don't release that data." And I said, "There's no right to that data. You are going to harass these people." And the police officers union said, "Scotty, you made the right decision in stopping the RJ from having this because you protected the right to privacy."
Thank you.
Obviously, the Secretary of State has a myriad of different functions. Outside of voter integrity, can you highlight one of the other roles that you would obviously be very focused on, and give us some of your background as to how you'll be able to add value, again, outside of the topic of voters and registration, et cetera?
Okay, I didn't give you all my background. I grew up in California. I'm an American Hispanic, and I went to Catholic school. I had the best teachers. They taught us boundaries, and I know what boundaries are. And I flew for an airline. I went to college, flew for an airline, almost 9 years, and I opened up my business, which I already told you was a talent agency. I was pulled out of my business many times. But I've opened up businesses for people. I know how to set up businesses. I know corporations, nonprofits. I know all that. But then the Secretary of State and all these other people got mad. They didn't want an Hispanic helping other Hispanics. So here we are with all these rules and regulations, and we have all these monkey wrenches that we can't get anything done. And I want to consolidate that, or do a clearinghouse where it makes the red tape wash away all those different places you have to go to every time you have to register a new business. Doesn't make sense. So we need to put it together, and we can make it happen together. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Deere?
Yes, we've already spoke of business, which is the main one for me. 80% of all budget, all people, all staff go to that. But we'll talk about securities fraud for a moment because it's crucial. It's a big division of what we do. And even today, right now in this room, I bet you just got spammed by something that's trying to get money from you. But our elderly, I'm telling you right now, our senior citizens are actually the target for what's going on there. And we need to make sure we're doing everything we can. I'd love to find ways to put bills in that make it to where if you got caught doing that, your regulation and your fees are even higher and you go to jail. It's so bad right now that you don't even want to answer your phone. That's what we're dealing with on a regular basis. But the security fraud is crucial. And what I would do is I'd actually help educate our senior citizens and anybody interested in what's happening, make sure that they see what's going on, and show them stuff. When something hits the news, they should see it. We should be meeting with each of the different, we have senior citizen homes, we have places we could send videos. So stuff like that in communication, it's just very practical, but it's the government working for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim?
Thank you. Securities, like he said, that's one of the important things they do. They manage the notary public system. Elections, we've already discussed. They also register corporations. Nevada is one of the most popular places to register corporations in the country, and we need to keep that going, and we need to reform a little bit there to make it a little easier. And one of the things that hindered that part of the Secretary of State office is the commerce tax. That's one thing we need to get rid of because that hurt us when it's part of people registering here in Nevada. So it also takes somebody that has experience in the legislature. I was in the assembly here. I also served as a technology advisor to Jeb Bush for 8 years in Florida. So I know how to work in the governor's office. I also know how to work within a legislature. And I mentioned I'm a businessman, so we know how to make critical decisions because our life depended on it when we were in business. So remember that.
Thank you. Mr. Scotty?
All right, thank you. So Secretary of State does mainly 3 things. You have elections, you have business, and you have prisons. Now, there are 8 different divisions. Those divisions include Uniform Commercial Code, securities, notaries, business licensing, you have sports agents, you have Uniform Commercial Code, intellectual property, all of those areas. I tell you, I've had lawsuits in front of me in every one of those areas. I also bring my business experience to bear in these areas. As I told you, I was a law business owner for 10 years. We brought in about $200 million a year, which is about the same amount that the Secretary of State does. We had 40 employees. We provided services to 200 clients a year. So I have the experience. Plus, as Board of Governor, I supervise the entire legal community here in Nevada, and I am the only Clark County chairman to date that has put together a business plan. I can handle the issues that are going to come.
Thank you very much. Rebuttal, Mr. Deere.
Thank you. LLCs and 501c3s, partnerships were mentioned. I just quickly want to make sure you know that is a huge generator. One way to keep taxes down is have other finances come in our state. We actually do that. It goes into the general, big portion of it. But I'll tell you, we are actually losing some of that battle. We have other states stepping up, just like was mentioned. It's very true. And if we don't stay creative and stay diligent, we'll lose that. And then commerce tax isn't going to be our only problem. We need to make sure that's a huge issue. Thank you.
Ms. Keenan.
There are grants that are given I just learned this through the Secretary of State's office. I did receive a grant from the Housing Authority. I set up a micro business for the city of Las Vegas for people who were on welfare to get them off welfare. And that was a blessing because we were successful with that, except the city of Las Vegas did not pull through with the location. Other than that, we need to follow through with each other. If we're going to offer any grants or any programs for people to get, and I want to do workshops for all those people who are starting out so that they can learn the business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll continue on the economic theme. Inflation is skyrocketing. We have the threat of rising interest rates. And frankly, small businesses have been left out of the economic recovery. We all know, especially restaurants and very consumer-facing businesses have been hurt very badly. And not one time have I ever seen the Secretary of State's office say, you know what, doggone it, let's lower that $350 fee, or let's do this, or let's do that. The small business owner in the state of Nevada has been left out of federal assistance as well as local assistance. So, Carl, I'll start with you. What would you do the next economic downturn to help Nevada's businesses?
Okay, why don't we do a sliding scale? We need to do something when people are starting out businesses. They have a business plan. I know about business plans. I've set them up myself. But the most important thing is they need a little bit of help. And we all needed it when we started business, all of us. No one's going to admit it, but no one, and unless you grew up in a business. I didn't. But the most important thing, we're going to guide people and we're going to lower the rates. We can start off with lower rates. Remember, I was telling you, they started off with $100, and now it's astronomical. I mean, they keep layering more and more fees on us. And nobody's ever there to answer to Silver Flume, or the doors are not open in the city of Henderson. I mean, not in the Secretary of State office is closed in the general state building, and it's open, and it's not even open, I'm sorry, in North Las Vegas. You can't even get any help from anyone. So I would change that. I would definitely keep the doors open.
Thank you.
During COVID.
Mr. Martian.
So I said earlier, I would like to get that fee to zero. I am a huge proponent of business and small business in particular. I demonstrated that when I was in the Assembly. The commerce tax is a travesty. I would do anything I could in the Secretaries of State office to influence any of the legislators to get rid of that commerce tax. The commerce tax, as you know, anybody that makes over...
That wasn't my question, Mr. Marchant.
All right.
What are you going to do as Secretary of State to help the small business owner in the next economic downturn?
Well, I would get rid of that fee or lower it substantially.
That's it?
Among other things, the Secretary of State office only has a certain amount of limitations of what it can do. Okay. I mean, I would definitely be a leader and advocate for that with the legislators that come in. And if we have a fair election, we're going to have good legislators.
Mr. Scotty, I hope you give me a little bit of hope as a business owner of some help at some point.
Well, first of all, we have a lot of inconsistency statewide in the business license fees that are imposed by the Secretary of State. We have inconsistency among professions. We have inconsistency with respect to the type of business you're forming. You have inconsistency based upon the capitalization of the businesses. First of all, we need a uniform standard, but more importantly, we need to reduce these fees. How do we reduce them? A lot of these fees are set by the legislature. So we need bill draft requests to go to the legislature right at the beginning to start advocating for these fees to be reduced, number one. Number two, we need to help educate the business owners on what is the most efficient way of operating. Now, one of the statutory responsibilities of the Secretary of State is to go around the state and tell people about the government economic incentives that are available. The problem with that is you're making businessmen dependent upon subsidies.
I want to give all of you a piece of advice. If you want the business owner's vote, all of you need to change your answer, because I've asked numerous times now for specifics. Dropping my $350 fee, that doesn't mean anything. I don't trust the government to help me run my business. What else can you do?
Thank you.
Christopher?
One is stay open. Obviously, that's crucial. and I can tell you I do have hope, I believe. One is, right now, if you actually have a business and you are trying to work here and you work here and you work there, you actually have to go to Washoe County, then you have to go to a city, then do a city individually. So money is time. The $350 is not the problem, but if you're having to do that everywhere you go, so we set an umbrella policy. What if we could do that for a state? Because there's people actually that work, some from Vegas and up here in Reno Sparks, that I know for a fact they go back and forth, but they're paying fees everywhere. Is there a way to work on that together to help make sure, and even if the fees, because cities do
Thank
need...
you.
Thank you. Time.
Thank you.
Rebuttal, Socorro?
You know, we have an executive budget that most people don't even know about. When I worked for the governor, represented the Hispanics, and I did see it. And most people don't see it, but we need to look and see, Mr. Sanchez, what it is, so we can get to it. All right.
Mr. Scotty?
Yeah, thanks. The license fees constitute a huge portion of the revenue that the Secretary of State receives. So we can take those fees and use it for low-interest loans to businesses. That's one answer specifically addressed to your question.
Thank you.
What we would need is approval from the governor and also the legislature. So
Thank you.
we can get that done.
Thank you. Christopher?
Problems is workforce development, and that's hurting businesses like crazy. And so I actually really want to do a thing where we come in and have veterans. This is the top place veterans want to retire. We want to help them when they retire, because right now if they're retiring, it's very difficult for even their skill sets to be understood. I've worked on this across the nation, and because I've been the vice chair of economic development for National League of Cities across the board, and we are working on this now, but I'd like to see it implemented in the state of Nevada.
Thank you. All right, let's move on. Jason?
This actually sort of spawns off a comment that Socorro had made earlier. I mean, everyone's sort of posturing around education. Can you educate the crowd a bit on what changes you could see or education you could provide to small businesses in order to help them make the right decisions around what type of structure they should be using, et cetera, for that fee that they're paying?
Yes, first of all, we need to build confidence. People don't have confidence in our system, so the businesses that were in business and closed down because of the COVID, they said, hey, you know what? We're not going to even try anymore. So now I have to go, or whoever gets Secretary of State, which is me, I hope, is we have to build new people, build them into the system of confidence when they see this time that the voting is done right, and that we get more voters to vote that are Republicans, and the independents to turn Republicans, and the Democrats who are the Hispanics. And I'm working really hard on that, and I'm guiding them how to train them, and we're going to be out there with nonprofits that really have a mission to help these people, and we're going to guide them so that they can start new businesses. I know a lot of people know how to do things, but they don't know the paperwork. They need help. So that's my answer for that one.
Thank you. Mr. Deere?
Thank you so much. One of the things is we actually aren't supposed to work in silos in this government. So we have a GOED, we have Lieutenant Governor. We working together can do quite a bit. There's some of the stuff that may not be what my hands go to, but we can encourage it, endorse it, and help push. Small businesses would be one of my number one, trying to walk alongside them, help where we can. I even think silver flume assistance would help, because one of the things, I mean, if you have a big business, you actually have plenty of people who can figure that out. Nothing personal, but you have lawyers to help do that. Small businesses make mistakes all the time, which actually cost them time and money, and it hurts us. It hurts you, it hurts me, it hurts our cities. We've seen that. I currently serve an EDON here in the area. I actually do a lot of different things with businesses, standing up with them, trying to help. And my degree is in organizational leadership. That's my master's degree. So I actually do a lot of training on structure, communication, marketing, and all those things. Thank you.
Marcia?
One of the duties we discussed is the Secretary of State is in charge of registering corporations around the country and here in the state of Nevada. And one of the things we could do is beef up the education system within the Secretary of State on the website or whatever, and provide assistance to people that are registering on how to register, maybe what type of business they should register as, whether it's an LLC, a subchapter S, a C Corp. We could beef that up for them. So that's one thing that I would advocate when I get in there.
So again, we do need to go out and train the public on what are the types of businesses that are available and what's the benefits of each type of business and how easy it is to form these types of business. Again, whether it's an LLC, LLP, corporation, sole proprietorship. We need to teach people how to form a company. We need to teach them how to put together a business plan so they can succeed. We need to teach them what are the funding sources available to help them grow. We need to teach them that, as Mac Miller said, that we are working, where is he? We are working to grow mining and working to grow gaming, and we're working to grow entertainment, but at the same time, there's so many other fields that we have openings for people to develop business. That's part of the things that Secretary of State needs to do on the the Board of Economic Development with the governor. So as Secretary of State, I'm going to be on that board. I'm going to be training people. I'm going to be educating people. I'm going to make sure that Silver Fume is a system that makes it easy for people to register. Thank you.
Do you have a comment?
I just have a comment. Just so you know, the reality of all the opening businesses, a lot of Hispanics are not computer literate. They're just not. And especially in business. And to bring them up to speed, we have to do more things. We're going to have to get grants. We're going to have to get all the money that's available and allocated for this kind of business. So we do need help. We do need some consideration from everyone on that. Thank you.
Should hear.
One of my backgrounds is in customer service. If any of you guys ever ate at Black Angus, I used to be a trainer food server for them and for years. And so with that said, I just say this, is customer service, customer service. And I do this now, as an elected officer, I work very hard and diligently for the people in my city. Without question, if I get to be here, we work very diligently, we bring customer service, and we'll do all those kind of things to try to help make sure we communicate and make sure people know where to walk and where to step. Thank you.
You all appear to be very successful in your current careers. This isn't a high-paying job. $60,000 range, roughly, is what I've researched. My question to each and every one of you is, A, will you be taking a pay cut if you are elected? And B, if so, why would you want this position? Socorro, I'll start with you.
This isn't about money. This is about our future. I have children, I have grandkids. It's our future. If we don't do it now, we're done. And you have to have the courage to do it. And I know I've been in front of a lot of people who are leaders. They're considered leaders in this town. And they're so corrupt. We have in-house corruption downtown Las Vegas. So I'm going to say that I have not taken a pay cut. I'm retired. And I'm going to give everything I've got to face up to what we have to face now. Because we created this problem together by not doing anything and being passive. So this is time to get on the ball.
Thank you. Mr. Scotty.
So I've been working my whole life in public service. When I came to Nevada, I knew right away that one of the things I wanted to do is to help the legal community. And I was on various community service committees. And then I realized that I could actually work for the Supreme Court. I became a Supreme Court settlement judge. And after that, I became a judge. I've done all these things because I've wanted to serve the public. I wanted to serve the public because when I came here 30 years ago with my family, I raised 2 young kids here and my wife, this is an important community to me. And I know that our election system is broken. Our election system needs to be fixed because our founding fathers said it's critical. It's critical that we have the right to vote because by voting, that's how we are expressing the consent of the governed. We're in a crisis right now in our elections. We need to fix our broken elections so we can rebuild confidence in our constitutional republic.
Time.
Thank you. You did not answer my question. Will you take a pay cut accepting this position?
No pay cut.
Thank you. Mr. Marchant.
So I'm retired, so I will not be taking a pay cut, but I am running because we are losing our country if we haven't lost it already. And the reason is because of election fraud. We have to have somebody in this office that's strong, that will have the guts to first acknowledge that and then fix it once they're there. And you need somebody like myself that has the technology background to understand exactly how it works and to get rid of them. And that's what I plan to do when I become the Secretary of State of Nevada.
Thank you. Mr. Dyer.
For me, I would probably make right around the same as I do for City Council.
Thank you. Appreciate your honesty.
Now, with that said, I ran in the very beginning as I watched. I'm from Las Vegas. I almost ran for office down there mainly because I did not like how I saw people treat each other. I think when we have leadership, we actually should be expecting more. No one should be calling people names. No one should be going and tearing down people. Doesn't mean you agree with them. Believe me, I don't agree with a lot of people. You see my lovely wife over here, I disagree with her more than any of you sometimes. I've been married 29 years. But we love each other and we find ways to walk forward and have conflict resolution. That doesn't seem to be an answer anymore. And I'm telling you, that's a problem. That should scare you more than almost anything. Now, yes, we have to fix voting. I agree. We have to make sure our businesses have people there. But it takes leadership to get in there, bring people together, and make sure we're going somewhere, or you're going to find we're just going there and we throw gasoline on the problem. Thank you.
Jason?
We have a crowd question. Starting here with Socorro. The Secretary of State now has jurisdiction over county voter rolls, getting you guys back into your comfy area. What will you do to ensure the integrity of our voter rolls?
We need to be micromanaging now. It's time. And we need to find all the avenues to be micromanaging what's going on, scrutinizing the people that need to be scrutinized, and sit down with them and get something, in writing, like an agreement from each one of them, why do they want to work on the polls? Nobody ever does that. You need to sign an agreement and say, hey, guess what? It's not just a job. Here's my ID, and guess what I can do? This is my background. We need to get a commitment. This is serious stuff. And people are willing to do this. I've been sitting in all these meetings with all these women who want to get on board, and they want to help, but they don't know how. So if we can sit down and come up with a plan, I'm there for them. I'm willing to listen to anyone who has plans, because I know that I can make a difference sitting down and getting the polls right. Thank you.
So I do have a plan, actually, without question. One is there's some things already happening. You guys need to know. They daily now meet with vital statistics. There are things daily happening. Now, you may not believe them, but that means everyone's a liar to you, and I don't think that's a way to live. I have to believe what people tell me, and I walk forward the best I can, and then I verify and I check, and if they do that, I believe that. But the biggest thing with voter rolls, they did change it from county going to the Secretary of State. Now the Secretary of State's office, and they'll send out to the county. That will help so much. But one of the things that's still a problem is we're talking about the DMV for a moment. Now with that said, if you kind of ask who's verifying what, they all kind of look at each other like the other person's doing it. So I think the best thing you can do right now for our rolls is to make sure, let DMV do that. That's a service. But then immediately it comes into verification on a Secretary of State, and we make sure whatever is getting signed in, that they're legal and it's possible for them to vote in this great country we call the United States. Thank you.
Thank you.
First thing I'm going to do is get rid of ERIC, Selection Registration Information Center. It's a George Soros-owned organization, and they are in 31 states. And I'm getting rid of that, and we're bringing it in-house, and we're going to clean up our voter rolls like they should be cleaned up.
We really need to clean them up. A big example is the last election. 82,000 inactive voters were sent mail-in ballots. The reason that happened is Secretary of State actually removed them from the rolls about 89 days before the election, and it turns out there was a law you can't do it closer than 90 days. So that's one of the problems, is we need a Secretary of State that's going to say, wait a minute, that's unconstitutional because you're letting invalid votes count. There's a couple other things that I want to do to try to clean up the voter rolls. We can use the jury pools to find people that are not citizens. Jurors always want to get out of jury duty, and they're always checking the box saying they're not a citizen. Let's get that data. There's tens of thousands of these people that we're getting every single year. Let's use that data. Commercial properties. Let's look at the addresses and apply those to county assessors' records. We can determine which properties are commercial. In terms of deceased people, there's the regulation that says the county only needs to report to the Secretary of State once per year that they've actually done their due diligence. We need to stop that.
If you were a pastor, we'd be in church all day long, brother. So check this out. So when it comes to, I'm sorry. When it comes to voter rolls, and we're looking at what needs to be done, one of the things we can send out is something to cities. I'm a city councilman, and we're trying to do some things now that have other eyes on it, not just the Secretary of State's office, because that's the answer. You need everyone doing their part, making sure that we're all working together, and I think as we do that, we'll find that we're all pleased with the success. Thank you.
Thank you, Socorro.
We need to verify votes, authenticate them. Nobody authenticates. There's no oversight. We have no oversight for anything in the government right now. You call and you want to get something fixed, you can't. In order to certify. Can't certify something that's not authenticated. When I worked in London, they authenticate everything. They send it out somewhere else and they get it done. That's what we need to do.
Thank you. Richard.
Just to my esteemed friend Chris, I do pray.
All right, we're going to stay on the voter issue. Here's a hypothetical I want each of you to think about. Nevada was a very critical state in the presidential election. We all know that. But let's talk at Georgia. Let's do a little hypothetical and say we are the next Georgia in the next presidential election. The country, the world is looking at us. They don't believe in this room the votes. They don't believe they are accurate, on and on and on. As Secretary of State, what would you do to show the world the credibility of our system here in Nevada when it comes to voter pedigree, voter success, that the votes are real? Because this is going to be a crazy election. The presidential election is going to be crazy. There's going to be eyes like you've never seen before, and you folks are going to be stepping into that eye of the storm. Are you ready for it? What are you going to do? Socorro?
Okay, first of all, we need to keep our eyes on the world. El Salvador had that challenge too, Bukele. The thing is that the voter, he won, and it's a blessing. He's been taking care of all the votes, and he's letting everyone know he is the biggest and the most famous leader in the world right now, El Salvador. He's the only one that's opened up a Bitcoin business over there, and he's got a university there. So we have to be very mindful of how we're going to be bragging about how we're going to get this done right. I don't know if we can get it done right on this one because we still have people who have old tricks. How are we going to get rid of the old tricks? But if we can get through this and get more people to vote and get them out and push them and say, you got to vote and bring confidence again. That they don't have confidence. People are afraid right now. So that's our job, to bring people out and get them inspired about voting. And then we can inspire the world. Then we're on our way. But we need each other on that. Thank you.
Mr. Marchant?
100% transparency. Like I said, we want to go back to paper ballots and precinct voting. And we're going to allow people, all people, no matter what party you're from, to stand over the shoulder of the people counting the votes. Right now, in Clark County, we can't get within 60 feet of the people counting the votes, and that's ridiculous. No more of this putting up cardboard over the windows or plywood and keeping people out of the area where people are counting the votes. So that's how we're going to do it. 100% transparency and allow everybody to participate. We're not keeping anybody out of the room where we're counting the votes. And same thing in the polls. We're allowing everybody to come in and vote, and none of this intimidation or anything like that in the voting booths.
Mr. Scotty?
Thank you. I would eliminate the Dominion machine, eliminate the jealous machine. And you know how you do that? Because the Secretary of State can withdraw certification of those machines. That's the first thing that I'm going to do when I get into office. I'll have that done the very first day. That will restore confidence. We can't have 50% of the country thinking that our elections are rigged, our elections are unfair. So I'm going to take care of that. We have ballot adjudication boards. They must be nonpartisan. Right now, there's a screwy regulation that says they're nonpartisan unless that's impracticable. I don't agree with that. I want to file a lawsuit to stop mail-in balloting. We'll get that done. That'll restore confidence. In Georgia, you know what? In Georgia, when they had voter ID passed, actually, there was greater participation by Hispanics and African Americans once that happened. Around the world, our European countries, 43 out of 47 of the European countries that have voter ID, all right? And look at Canada, look at Mexico, look at the Philippines.
Thank you.
They
Mr.
have
Dare?
voter ID and it works, and we have.
Thank you.
Amen.
We have excellent
Thank you. Mr. Dare?
voter
So I don't believe anybody answered your question,
Nope.
so let me do that.
As
for
usual.
you. So, one, I would follow the law. I believe we're a nation of laws. I am not above the law, and just because I don't like something, which I don't like a lot of things as an elected official, I don't get to change it just because I don't like it. However, I think we have the motion to be able to slow down. We can lead, and that's what we do now. We lead, we communicate, but part of it, you have to start that now. It's not something just when that happens. You put that team in place, and you make sure in place, and you'll know what's happening. And if something is awry, we stand up and we stop it. It's actually that easy, but you have to be paying attention now. Thank you.
Last rebuttal.
All we have to do is petitions. I did read about solutions. Solutions are where we all get together. We have to do those petitions and get rid of all the fact that they put us in a wheelchair to begin with on the voting system. So if we do the petitions, we get enough people to fill it out. We can put this into law. So let's try it and let's do it.
Thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to wrap up. This is your last opportunity in front of this audience to tell this audience in this great state why you should be Secretary of State. Mr. Marchant, let's start with you, please.
Like I said before, I think you need to elect somebody that's got the life experience to do this, somebody that has experience in the legislature, somebody that also has business experience, and it takes that. We are going to have to make some tough decisions, and being a businessman for most of my life, we had to make tough decisions. And we need to have the guts to do the right thing. We have to acknowledge that there was a problem, and there is a problem. And we have to have the guts to fix the problem. And that's something that I can promise you that I will do when I get in there. I've actually been working on this problem for a year. I've engaged with some of the smartest people in the world, cyber and otherwise, like political strategists that really understand how to dig into a problem, and that's what I've done for a whole year. We have exposed what has happened in 2020, and you're going to find out pretty soon. And you got to have somebody that can execute the job that they're supposed to do, and that's exactly what I'll do when I get in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Scotty?
Yeah. Wow, this hour has gone fast. You know what we need to do is make sure that every person who casts a ballot is legally eligible to do so. We must make sure that we count the lawful ballots, and we must make sure that all of this process is open to unfettered observation. We must make sure that voters verify their residence, their identification, and their citizenship. Our constitutional republic depends upon this. When I get into office, I'm going to follow the constitutional laws to promote voter integrity, but also I'm going to develop new regulations to promote cybersecurity protection. I'm going to increase stricter post-election certification audits. I'm going to make broader observation rights to the poll workers. I am going to make sure that we conduct a vigorous vetting of our voter rolls. So the Secretary of State position is a highly legal position. You're enforcing laws regarding elections, regarding prisons, regarding business, regarding securities. You have a team of investigators, a team of lawyers that are helping you to get this job done. I can do this job efficiently. I've done business plans. I've led the legal profession. I've had a docket of 800 cases as a judge. I can do this. There's a Democrat lawyer on the other side that's an appointee by Harry Reid. I can beat that lawyer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Dare?
I asked for your vote, and mainly because I believe I'm the only one on the Republican side, I believe, that can win the general. And let me tell you why. I'm not saying these guys said is wrong. There's a lot of great things said here. But I am from Las Vegas. I grew up there. I graduated from Las Vegas High School. My father literally wrote the theme song for Las Vegas in 1990. He wrote Runnin' Rebel Fever. Some of you hate me for that because UNR doesn't like rebels. But he did. If you remember Jerry Lewis Talladon, he was singing on there. I want you to know, my family is very well known in Las Vegas. I was a president of the Nevada League of Cities. I worked with the leaders across the whole state. I serve here, and I do my best to make sure I'm honest, I'm integrous, and when you have somebody in there, there's going to be other things that come along. And you need someone that you can say, is he going to tell the truth? Are they going to stand there and have things that aren't fully true and exaggerate things? I'm not picking on anybody, but I would say this. I question, and I'm very concerned when I see things in the paper when somebody sends an electoral ballot that's not real. That concerning for me. I have integrity questions when I see things like that. And you should too. We should expect better out of all of us, and not just me. You should hold us accountable to the things we say. When we're going around a state calling people rhinos or this and that, you know what? That does not help our party grow. Don't get me wrong. We need to make sure that we're standing and keep our conservative values. But name calling and negative, we are the leaders. Think of how Reagan functioned. He was everyone's president, and I love what he did. That's the kind of Republican I want to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Socorro?
All right, now we're going to get serious. We need to get back to blue ink. Blue ink is more important than black ink because it distinguishes original documents. That's how they steal property. That's how they steal our votes. That's how they can manipulate signatures. So we need to get back to that. One ID, one person, one ballot. And that's all we need to do to make things move in the right direction. We have to also do any original documents, any agreements, any government papers have to be signed in blue ink, original documents. It's very important. You don't know how they steal properties. They don't, if you don't have the original document in blue ink, guess what? Your properties can be gone. So let's start thinking, or anything you own. So let's start thinking the way it should be done. It's done that way all over the world, blue ink. And that's what we were taught, and cursive, our signature. So I hope we can remember these things. These are just little tricks of their trade of cheating. So think about it. And this is how we start the changing of our voter ID, our in-person, and the ballots have to be structured so that everybody understands that it's blue ink. The machines need to be gone. You can't, there's too many things going on, and it's confusing to the people. So if we can just decide one thing, that's all we need to do, not the machines. The machines, they can alter that. So please get back to the basics. That's all we really know really works. And why did we change in the first place? It didn't work. Socorro Keenan, Secretary of State.
And your website, Socorro?
SocorroKeenan.com.
KDAHIR, say it with me, DARE, KDARE.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marchant.
JimMarchant.com, JimMarchant.com.
RichardScotty.com.
All right, can I have all of you stand up, please? Ladies and gentlemen, your candidates for Secretary of State in our great state of Nevada. Thank you, everybody.
Here. I want to thank these candidates, both Lieutenant Governor, Secretary of State. We have some great candidates, and I think we also need a round of applause for the timer and the moderators. They asked some great questions. By the way, the last thing, do not forget March the 3rd, which will be our next event for Red Move, which will have Segal, the Attorney General. It won't be a debate because there's only one candidate for each position, for Attorney General and Treasurer and Controller. But then in April, we'll do the U.S. Senate candidate. But again, don't forget, this month, February 26th on a Saturday, 95% sure we're going to have Steve Bannon here. So I'm going to need a lot of help to get people here. Nah, not you. Thank you for coming.